What's going on YouTube? My name is Zach with Android Digest, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Moto G Stylus. This is the 2021 model. It retails for $299. A lot of you really liked the Moto G Stylus last year, so I wanted to review this model, and I want to let you know if this model is worth your money. And I've got to tell you, I've got some mixed impressions, some good and some bad. So I want to get right into it. Let's get this video started and let's get it going. Alright, so I've got the phone here, and I just have to say, I really don't know what to think about this phone. There are some good upgrades in this phone over last year's 2020 model. This has a better processor, which is really nice. I've got to say, it is a lot faster in my opinion than last year's 2020 model. This phone also has a fingerprint sensor on the side. Last year it was actually on the back. I don't really care either way, both works just fine. And this phone also has a bigger screen than last year's 2020 model. It is a 6.8 inch screen. So there's a lot to like about this phone, but Motorola has always been the value king. It's the place you go when you want to get a bargain, when you want to get a great phone for the money. And there are a lot of phones that have came out that are a really good value, like the Pixel 4a for $350 that will have a way better camera than this phone, that will have great battery life and amazing software updates. There are a lot of other phones like the OnePlus Nord. They released the N10 model that has a 90 Hz refresh rate, and you see all these different phones that are really trying to compete at this mid-range market. Now Motorola used to be king. The Moto G line used to be the place you would go to get the bang for your buck, and honestly I think this year that's really changing. And one of the reasons I think that is changing is, one, because of software updates. So Motorola, when they have released statements about software upgrades, they have basically said, hey, we will do one big software update per phone. But this phone here, it released with Android 10, not even Android 11. Android 11 has been out for like 6 months. So if you care about software updates, I've got to say Motorola is not really leading the way in that area. So for around $300, you could get something that gets better software updates. If you want the best camera out there, this is a good camera in different ways, but again, it's not leading in its class. You have the Google Pixel 4a that is much better for the price. Now as far as the stylus goes, that's one really big reason to buy this phone is the stylus, and a lot of you love it, but this stylus does not support palm rejection. So what's the point of getting a stylus like this if you're not going to support something like palm rejection? At that point, you could just buy a stylus on the side. Yes, it is nice to store the stylus, so for those of you who want a storable stylus at a good price, this is a much better phone than the LG Stylo. But Motorola, I feel like with this phone, it's really good, and it is a good phone, and if you find it for the right price, it's going to be worth your money. But it really is dependent on the value that you get. And I've got to say that at that $299 price, Motorola is not leading the way in value, which is a little disappointing. Now don't get me wrong, this phone is a good phone, right? If you take a look at the design, you see a beautiful 6.8 inch screen. It's got a nice little hole punch there in the front, and you're also going to see one pretty loud speaker here, a stylus, and a headphone jack. You also have an SD card slot, and you have a fingerprint sensor on the side of the phone, and it works really well this year. So this year it's on the side, and I really like that. Now as far as the display, this is a very good display. It's a 2400 by 1080 display, so it is a full HD screen and then some. It looks really nice, that 6.8 inch screen. This phone also gets plenty bright. It gets bright enough for everyday use. So I really enjoy the screen. I think it's great for watching movies or any media. I think it's great for browsing. And if you're looking for a large phone, when I talked about comparisons and I said, ooh, the Pixel 4a or that OnePlus Nord, those are going to be a little bit of smaller phones. This is a 6.8 inch screen. So one part of the value that you are going to get with this phone is the screen. So if you want a phone with a very nice screen, this is definitely going to be it. Just keep in mind that I am comparing it to those $300 phones, and I think this screen is very good for the price. Now the performance is really good on this phone as well. Now I mentioned the Google Pixel 4a, that has a Snapdragon 730. Well, this is going to have something a little bit slower, okay? Snapdragon 678. So it's going to be a little slower than those phones that are a little more expensive. But when you compare it to last year's Moto G Stylus model, this phone is faster, and I definitely noticed it. But the one issue I pointed out, and I don't feel like any other tech reviewers pointed it out, you know, some tech reviewers mentioned that this phone would be a little slow to respond in different ways, but they didn't quite explain the simplicity of it. You see, if you have an app open on this phone, and you swipe up to close it out, and you quickly swipe up again, it will not work. You have to wait for that animation, right? So as you're closing out an app, it's got to go through that animation. It's got to minimize that first before you can open up and look at other apps. Now, other phones, even at this price range, don't have that lag. This phone is definitely fast enough to load the apps as that other app is being minimized. It just doesn't do it. But after that is done, then this phone is plenty fast. I really didn't notice a big difference between this and the Pixel 4a. So this is really good mid-range performance. And this phone also has 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is the same as last year. It's going to be decent for gaming, not the best and not the worst. So this phone fits in right at the price range, I think, pretty well. $300, I think you get a good Snapdragon processor for the price. I think it performs well. It just has that one software issue that I really think they need to fix. And if you're coming from a slower phone that was around $200 or less, this phone is going to feel very, very snappy to you. Now, as far as the stylus goes, yes, the stylus is pretty nice, and it's really handy if you want to take some quick notes. A lot of people like using it. It's really like using a mouse for your phone, so you can get really precise touch. And that is a great thing. So I really like it, and a lot of you will like that too. But like I said earlier, when you're looking at stylus functionality, I think the one thing we look for is palm rejection. That means if I open the OneNote app, I want it to be able to reject my palm so I could go up and down with my hand to scroll around, and I can only use the pen to actually get the writing on the screen, if that makes sense. You don't want your finger to get the writing on the screen when you're moving around, and you don't want to have to change that setting every time you're messing with your screen while you're drawing. So this doesn't have palm rejection. It's really like NEO capacitive stylus. The only real difference is that you're going to get this little window of apps that pops up, which is pretty handy. It's pretty nice when you do actually use the stylus. But as someone who doesn't use the stylus much, I don't really get a ton of use out of it myself, but a lot of you will, and there's not a lot of devices that have palm rejection at this price range, and there's not a lot of devices that have a stylus to begin with at this price range. So the bottom line for a lot of you is going to be, for this phone, the stylus has to be something you want, and you have to be okay with no palm rejection. If you really want a stylus, if you really want a large phone, then this might appeal to you even more than something like the Google Pixel 4a. So the Google Pixel 4a might have a better camera, but this, on the other hand, will have a stylus. It's going to have a larger screen, and those two things may be a very, very big deal to you. Plus, this is $50 less than that Google Pixel 4a. And one compromise you are going to make with this phone is the camera. Now, they have an interesting camera setup here on this phone. So you have a few different cameras. If you take a look at the back, you've got these 3 cameras here, and you've got this one right here as well, and then you have the flash. So you have 4 cameras on the back. Now, one of those is a 48 megapixel camera. You also have an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera, a 2 megapixel depth camera, and of course you have your front facing camera, which is 16 megapixels. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the camera. I do want you to know though that this camera does put out pretty good photos, and it's pretty reasonable for the price, again, if you don't compare it with the Pixel. This phone does very, very well when you're in portrait mode. It does a great job through the software of blurring other things out. I got some phenomenal photos of my family whenever I was using portrait mode. I thought it looked very, very good. It does, in fact, look very good. So you're going to really love this phone if you like taking portraits. Selfies still look good. They look okay, and also the regular camera does. I think a lot of these secondary cameras are pretty useless. I don't think you're really going to use the macro camera for much of anything. And a lot of those secondary cameras, I wish they would just get rid of them and just put all that focus in the main camera, which is pretty much the same as last year. So if you had the Moto G Stylus, I don't think you're really going to see a big upgrade in the camera department. And video is going to be okay as well. Again, you're getting a middle ground phone. The emphasis is not on the camera on this phone. It's not the worst out there. I would absolutely use it on a daily basis for myself, but it wouldn't be my favorite camera either, so that should be a consideration if you love photos. Now, the one other thing with this phone is the battery life. It does have a 4,000 milliamp battery. The battery life is great. I would get around 6, 7, 8 hours of screen time, and I ended the day one day with almost 50% of battery. I was at a little over 4 hours of screen time, so this phone will last a very, very long time. It also does turbocharge or fast charge. It's an 18-watt fast charger that it will charge with. Now, it comes with a 10-watt charger in the box, so just keep that in mind. So you got a good battery, an average camera, good performance, and a good screen, and a stylus. So this is a good phone overall. So if I want to give you some advice, some buying advice, I would say that this phone fits in really well at around that $250 price range. If you see this phone on sale for that, I think it is a good deal. I think it is definitely very, very good for that price. And a lot of tech reviewers out there want to compare it to the latest and greatest. Well, this phone is a $300 phone, okay? And compared to other $300 phones, it fits in pretty well overall, but it really depends on your use case. If you want a big screen, and if you want a stylus, this phone is definitely going to be the phone for you. If you are looking $300 or less, and you want a stylus and a big screen, this is a no-brainer, okay? This is improved over last year. It is faster than last year. But here's my pet peeve here. This is to Motorola, okay? When you are the value king, you have to think about the people, right? You have to make a phone that everyone wants to buy, and they say, wow, look at all these great features for the price. Well, the speakers on this phone are okay. This phone does not have NFC, which would be nice. It has no wireless charging, which would be nice. It has no water resistance, just a mild coating, I'm sure, of some little water resistant stuff. It's not IPX water resistant rated or anything like that. So we don't get those water resistant ratings, which would be very nice. And no NFC seems pretty inexcusable. But the most inexcusable thing, in my opinion, is releasing this with Android 10. A lot of us budget-conscious consumers, we want a phone that's going to last for a long time. We want good updates. We want to know that as Google releases these updates, you are going to release those to our phone as well. In one operating system upgrade, it's just inexcusable, and I'm really hoping that they come out with a statement and change their mind and release 2 software updates for this phone. I haven't heard an official statement on how many updates they're going to have for this phone, but if it's like any of their flagships even, most of their flagship phones, they're only releasing 1 update for those, so I can only assume it's going to be the same for this too. And the fact that they released it on an operating system that's already behind means that when they finally do an update to this, you will have Android 11. And to be honest, it'll probably be almost Android 12 time around that time. And this phone will probably not get Android 12, 13, or 14. When Samsung has committed to 3 years of software updates, it makes a phone, if you want a big phone, it makes a phone like the Galaxy A51 a little more appealing. You spend around $300, $400, $500, you could get a phone like that. It makes a phone like the Google Pixel 4a very appealing, or the Pixel 4a 5G. So there are other options out there for you if you want good software updates. And my advice to you as people who are looking to buy this phone, if you want a phone that gets good software updates, this phone is not for you. If that little annoying glitch, if it annoys you, if you're swiping an app away and when you lift up through the navigation gestures, you lift up to see other apps and it doesn't go with you. If that annoys you, well, this phone is not for you. This phone is not for you if you need palm rejection in your stylus. And honestly, if you want the best value for the money, if you don't really care about the stylus, if you don't really care about this huge large screen, you just want the best bang for your buck, at least right now, I've still got to give that to either the Google Pixel 4a or maybe that OnePlus Nord N10. There are a lot of good phones out there that are releasing around this $300 price range. So you really have to think about value here. And I don't want to sound bad about this phone or make you not want to buy it. Just consider the price. If you're looking for a value, this phone, I know, whether it's through Project Fi or other carriers, this is going to go on sale. And when you see it for $250 or less, that's going to be a pretty good deal for the price. But around $300 or more, and especially if you don't care about the stylus, there are probably other options that are a little bit better. So because I kept it real with you, I'm really hoping that you would give me a sub to my channel. That would be great. And give a like to this video, that would be great as well. I've also got links in the description to really everything I've talked about in this video. I did buy this phone with my own money. I wasn't paid to review this or anything like that. But if you do click any of the links in my description and decide to buy any item out there, I am an affiliate with companies like Amazon and I may earn a commission, which can help our channel in different ways. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this review has helped you figure out if you should buy this phone. Again, a good phone, but find it for the right value if you want it. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit better, there are some other options available. I hope you all have a great day. Stay safe, and we're gonna keep coming with more content, including a Galaxy S21 review coming very soon.